WWE Monday Night RAW results January 10, 2022. Tonight's WWE RAW opens up on the USA Network with a look back at how Bobby Lashley won a fatal four-way last week to become the new #1 contender to WWE Champion Brock Lesnar. We're live from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania as Jimmy Smith welcomes us. He's joined at ringside by Corey Graves and Byron Saxton. We go right to the ring and out comes WWE Champion Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman. The pyro hits as they continue to the ring. Graves hypes Bobby Lashley vs Lesnar at the WWE Royal Rumble. We see MVP and Lashley watching backstage when Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander approach, happy about the Hurt Business being back together. Lashley says the group is no more, he never said they were back together, and they can get the hell on because the Almighty works alone. A disappointed Benjamin and Alexander walk off. Heyman takes the mic and hypes Lesnar up. Lesnar takes the mic and gives a shout out to Philadelphia, says he can't believe we're back, and then laughs. The music quickly interrupts and out comes Lashley with MVP. Lesnar looks on from the ring, holding the WWE title over his shoulder. Lashley and MVP march to the ring now. MVP takes the mic and says it's his honor to present the Almighty. Some fans boo and some cheer. Lashley takes the mic and says it's an honor to finally be in the ring with Lesnar and an honor to share the spotlight with him. Lesnar laughs. Lashley says from one super athlete to another super athlete, it's an honor to look Lesnar right in the eye and with all due respect, for 20 years, Lesnar has been ducking and running from him. Lesnar says with all due respect, it's an honor for Lesnar to be in the ring with himself, and he must apologize, for the last 20 years he's been winning titles in this ring and in other rings, so that doesn't fall on him, that falls on Lashley. Lesnar doesn't have a clue who Lashley is until he met him at day one, so it's Lashley's fault he didn't climb the ladder of success and enter the same arenas Lesnar did. Lesnar must apologize because if they would have met, he would have already beaten Lashley and we wouldn't be here right now, with all due respect. Lesnar says MVP and Lashley are dressed really fancy, and he asks the thread count on their suit. Lashley laughs and says Lesnar must be a comedian. Lashley says at the Royal Rumble when he beats Lesnar for the WWE title and Lesnar starts his stand-up comedy career, he and MVP will be front row because Lesnar is money as a comedian. Lesnar says he's funny and he's money. Lesnar does a knock-knock joke with Heyman and the punchline is Bobby, who? Exactly. Lesnar says. Lesnar says it's impossible to beat him and even more impossible to beat him when you're a Brock Lesnar wannabe. Lesnar drops the mic and walks off as his music hits. He and Heyman exit the ring as Lashley and MVP stare him down. Benjamin and Alexander suddenly attack Lashley from behind but he fights them off and clears the ring of Benjamin, then spikes Alexander into the mat. Lashley goes to ringside, scoops Benjamin and rams him into the ring post. Lashley grabs Alexander and launches him into the barrier, then runs him into the ring post. Lashley and MVP make their exit with Alexander and Benjamin laid out. We see recent happenings between Alpha Academy and RK-Bro. Randy Orton and Riddle are backstage now. They make a reference to Riddle's WWE NXT appearance and Orton says he can do whatever he wants on his own time, but they lost last week because Riddle didn't tag him in. Orton goes on and is about to give Riddle some advice in case he gets lost out there tonight, but Riddle interrupts with some of his comedy. Orton writes something on his hand, for in case he gets lost out there tonight. Riddle reads it and it says tag in Randy. Orton says good job. Riddle suggests they go out for some cheese sticks after the big match, since they're in Philly, and asks Orton if he's a Pat's or Geno's kind of guy. It sounded like Riddle got cheese sticks confused with cheese steaks. They head to the ring. Raw Tag Team Titles match, Alpha Academy vs RK-Bro. We go back to the ring and out come Raw Tag Team Champions RK-Bro, Randy Orton and Riddle. They hit the ring and the pyro goes off. Orton and Riddle pose together in the middle of the ring as we go to commercial. Back from the break and Alpha Academy is out, Chad Gable and Otis. We get formal ring introductions from Mike Rome. The bell rings and Riddle goes at it with Gable, trading holds. Gable with a quick takedown. Gable works Riddle over until Riddle turns it around and sends him to the floor. Riddle hits a big springboard moonsault from the apron to the floor, taking Gable back down. Riddle and Orton pose together on the apron as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Riddle is smashing Gable into the turnbuckles to get an opening. We see how Gable took out Riddle's leg during the break to turn it around. Gable kicks out of a roll-up and goes back to focusing on Riddle's leg as Orton looks on. Otis tags in and they double-team Riddle in their corner, dominating him as fans boo. Riddle counters a back suplex from Otis, then knocks Gable off the apron. Riddle with a floating bro to take Otis down as fans pop. Orton reaches for the tag and he gets it, right as Gable does. Orton levels Gable with clotheslines, then a third. Orton kicks Otis and catches Gable with a snap power slam. Orton fights Otis off the apron again and goes for the draping DDT on Gable, but he drops Orton over the top rope. Gable goes to the top but Orton knocks his leg out and crotches him. Orton climbs up for a superplex and he nails it for a pop. Riddle is trying to get back on the apron for a tag as fans rally for Orton. Riddle rallies the crowd now as Orton gets back up and drops back down to pound the mat. Otis drops Riddle at ringside. Orton drops Otis on the apron after missing the RKO. Otis tags in and they double-team Orton with Otis nailing a big power slam for the pin to win the titles. Winners and new Raw Tag Team Champions, Alpha Academy. After the match, the crowd is shocked as Alpha Academy begins to celebrate. We go to replays. We get a backstage segment with Damian Priest and the Street Profits getting on the same page and then getting hyped up for the next match. Damian Priest and the Street Profits vs. the Dirty Dawgs and Apollo Crews. We go back to the ring and out come the Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. Back to commercial. Back from the break and we get a backstage promo from Bianca Belair, who looks forward to winning tonight's triple threat, defeating Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble, and going into WrestleMania 38 as the champion. We go back to the ring and out comes WWE United States Champion Damian Priest as Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, and Apollo Crews wait in the ring. Commander Aziz is at ringside. Ford starts off with Crews and they go at it. Ford with a big drop kick for a 2 count. Ziggler tags in and takes over on Ford in their corner. Ziggler taunts Priest with a super kick tease. Ford turns it around on Ziggler but Ziggler rocks him and goes for a splash into the corner but Priest tags in and levels Ziggler with big right hands. Priest with a bell clap and a big spike into the mat. Roode runs in but Priest unloads with kicks, then a spin kick to drop him. Priest knocks Crews off the apron for a pop. Priest with the stage dive to Roode in the corner, then to Ziggler in the opposite corner. Roode saves Ziggler for a suplex. Ford levels Roode with a kick. Dawkins comes in and drop kicks Crews. Priest misses a kick on Ziggler but comes right back with a big clothesline. Priest and the Street Profits stand tall in an empty ring as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Crews has control of Ford. Crews presses Ford high in the air over his head, then drops him to the mat for a close 2 count. Crews works Ford over and in comes Ziggler to keep the offense going. Ziggler with a drop kick for a close 2 count. Ziggler goes right into a cradle for another 2 count. Ziggler grounds Ford with a headlock now, talking trash as Roode does the same. Aziz looks on from ringside. Ziggler stomps on Ford and super kicks Priest off the apron out of nowhere. Ford blocks a Fameasser and turns it into a sit-down powerbomb but Ziggler hangs in there. Dawkins rallies for a tag now. Roode and Dawkins tag in at the same time now. Dawkins runs wild on Roode and knocks Crews off the apron. Dawkins with a spinning back elbow to Roode. Crews runs in but Dawkins launches him with a big throw, then a throw to Ziggler. Dawkins with offense to Roode now, including the spinning back elbow into the corner, and the silencer for a 2 count as Crews breaks it up. Priest comes in and levels Crews with a kick to send him to the floor. Priest follows and goes for a powerbomb on the floor, but Aziz approaches and they have words. Cruz gets back up and drops Priest with a kick. Ford runs the ring and leaps out, taking Aziz and Cruz down. Roode takes advantage and rolls Dawkins up for a close 2 count. Dawkins fights Roode off and hits a big spinebuster. Ziggler comes from behind and nails a zigzag on Dawkins for the pin to win. Winners, the Dirty Dawgs and Apollo Crews. After the match, the Dirty Dawgs stand tall as the music hits. Aziz and Cruz enter the ring to pose with Ziggler and Roode. We get a look back at what happened on Friday's SmackDown with WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, WWE Champion Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. We also see how Seth Rollins faced off with Reigns to close the show. We go back to the ring and out comes Seth Rollins. Back to commercial. Back from the break and we see what happened earlier between Bobby Lashley and WWE Champion Brock Lesnar. We go back to the ring and Rollins has the mic. Rollins laughs and says he's in a great mood tonight because the Royal Rumble is on the horizon. Why is Rollins so excited for the Rumble? Not because of Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, not because of the 30-man and 30-woman Rumble matches, but because it is the night where he will become the new WWE Universal Champion. Rollins says that's right, it will be the Visionary vs. the Tribal Chief, the Visionary vs. the head of the table, brother versus brother, Roman Reigns versus Seth freakin' Rollins. But how is that after Rollins was screwed out of his WWE Day 1 singles match with Big E, did he get an advocate or a special counsel? No. Rollins doesn't need a penguin-looking snake oil salesman to do his job for him, he took matters into his own hands. He goes on and says a few things in life are certain, death, taxes, and he will beat Reigns every time. The music interrupts and out comes Big E. Big E says this is incredible news, he's so excited and so thrilled for Rollins. Rollins wants to know why. Big E says Rollins is his favorite out of all the world title combatants at the Rumble. Big E announces that he is officially entering the Men's Rumble and fans pop. Big E says of all the things he can dream or fantasize about, close to the top of the list is how he dreams about doing what he intended doing at Day 1, but doing it at the show of shows, WrestleMania 38, and that is, beating Rollins and walk out as world champion. Rollins laughs. Big E laughs with him. Rollins says Big E can dream all he wants. He's happy Big E is in the Rumble, but Big E doesn't stand a chance at beating him one-on-one. Big E says they should test that theory out tonight. Fans agree. Rollins doesn't know how he feels about that, he's not ready. Fans boo. Rollins says maybe next week in a better town. Fans boo him some more. Big E says let's not just do it tonight, let's do it right now. Fans pop and Rollins says Big E put him on the spot and called him out. Rollins accepts the challenge and calls for a referee. Seth Rollins versus Big E. The referee hits the ring and Seth Rollins locks up with Big E. Big E applies a headlock. They run the ropes and Rollins nails a drop kick, but Big E comes right back at him. They collide and Big E nails a belly-to-belly suplex. Big E runs into a big boot now. Rollins sends Big E to the floor and nails a suicide dive in front of the announcers. Rollins runs back in and goes for another suicide dive, but Big E rocks him at the ropes with a forearm. Big E lays Rollins down on the apron and hits the big running splash. Big E talks some trash at ringside as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Big E slams Rollins face first into the announce table. He brings it back in but Rollins kicks him, then chops him. Big E fights back but Rollins ducks and grabs him from behind. Big E slams Rollins and launches him into the corner. Big E catches Rollins for a big ending but Rollins slides out and hits a chop block, then a DDT. Big E goes to the floor for a breather. Rollins runs the apron and leaps off with a flying knee to the face. Rollins brings it back in and goes to the top for another flying knee to the face. Rollins covers but Big E kicks out at 2. Rollins clubs Big E with forearms to keep him down. Rollins grounds Big E with a headlock now. Big E fights up and out but Rollins chops him into the corner. Rollins with another big shot into the corner. Rollins wastes some time, then charges but Big E nails a runnage out of the corner. Big E gets hyped up now, nailing 2 clotheslines. Rollins blocks a belly-to-belly suplex with a headbutt. Rollins charges but gets sent to the apron. Big E runs and delivers the big spear from the apron to the floor in front of the announcers. We go to commercial. Back from the break and Rollins has Big E grounded. Big E fights up and slams Rollins to the mat. Big E blocks a stomp and nails a big overhead throw, and another. Big E ducks a shot and hits the belly-to-belly suplex. Big E dances over Rollins a bit, then runs the ropes for the big splash in the middle of the ring. Big E readies for the big ending but Rollins slides out. They tangle and Rollins blocks the runnage. Rollins with a rolling elbow to the jaw. More back and forth now. Rollins stuns Big E with an enziguri, then rolls him for a 2 count. Rollins with a super kick to the face to rock Big E but he still kicks out at 2. Rollins goes to the top and hits the frog splash for another close 2 count. Rollins waits in the corner now as Big E recovers. Big E blocks the stomp and powerbombs Rollins, holding it for a 2 count. Big E holds it and goes right into the stretch muffler submission. Rollins fights out but Big E comes from behind. Rollins fights him off with elbows. They run the ropes and Big E catches him with a big sidewalk slam for another close 2 count. Big E shows some frustration now. Big E charges but runs into a knee while Rollins is on the apron. Rollins goes back to the top but Big E cuts him off. Big E climbs to the top for a super big ending but Rollins fights him off with elbows. Rollins misses a flying knee and has to roll through. Big E misses the big ending. Rollins goes for the pedigree but it's blocked. They trade big strikes and Rollins drops Big E, then nails the stomp. Rollins is slow to make the cover but he gets the pin. Winner, Seth Rollins. After the match, Rollins stands tall as the music hits and we go to replays. Rollins recovers and makes his exit. We get a promo for the 19 superstars announced for the 30-woman Royal Rumble match so far. We go back to the ring and out comes Nikki Ash and Rhea Ripley. They head to the ring together and we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Sarah Schreiber is in the ring with Nikki and Ripley. They want to make an announcement. Nikki says they're here to challenge WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Carmella and Queen Zelina Vega to a rematch. Ripley says that's not what they talked about, they were supposed to come out and discuss the Royal Rumble. Schreiber brings up speculation on the future of their tag team and asks if the team has run its course. Ripley says they've had their ups and downs but Nikki interrupts and says of course it hasn't. There's tension between the two now. Nikki says they're going to talk about the future of their team right now. She asks if Ripley is thinking of breaking up. Ripley says they've had a great run but it's time to go their separate ways. Nikki says teaming brings out the best in each of them. Ripley says she's probably right but she's ready to venture out on her own. Nikki says if this is about the titles, they will get them back and Ripley says it's not about the titles. Nikki says Ripley thinks she's better because Nikki got pinned last week. Ripley denies that but Nikki says she was thinking it. Nikki says she was doing Ripley a favor with this tag team. They continue having words and Ripley says she's leaving because she doesn't like where this is headed. Nikki yells at her for walking out. Ripley says no but Nikki is making her really uncomfortable, so let's just say goodbye. Ripley offers her hand for a shake. Nikki says if Ripley doesn't want to be her partner, fine, but she can't shake her hand until Ripley looks her in the eye and says she still believes in her. Ripley has always believed in Nikki and always will, and hopes she doesn't stop believing in herself and hopes they can continue being friends. Nikki gets emotional, and then asks if they really can still be friends. Ripley hugs her and they embrace to mostly boos. They turn and Nikki goes to the ropes to pose for the crowd. Nikki comes back to Ripley but drops her with a shot to the face. Nikki unloads on Ripley and pounds on her to keep her down. Nikki leaves the ring and looks back, smiling at Ripley. She says almost superheroes don't need any friends. Nikki poses on the entranceway and is all smiles as fans boo her while Ripley tries to recover in the middle of the ring. We get a replay of the beatdown. Nikki poses some more as her music plays and Ripley looks on. Reggie approaches WWE 24/7 champion Dana Brooke backstage with cheese steaks. He senses that something is off and they go to leave, but here comes R-Truth yelling in the background. They walk up on a referee and are spooked. Truth and Akira Tozawa are up to their antics, with Tozawa hiding in a trash can. Reggie and Dana run away after throwing a cheese steak at Truth and Tozawa. It hits Tamina Snuka in the face and she's furious at Truth and Tozawa while Reggie and Dana escape. We see Omos walking backstage. Reggie runs into Omos as he and Dana Brooke are still running away. Omos lifts Reggie up against the wall and yells at him. Dana runs over and yells at Omos to put Reggie down. Omos finally puts him down on the ground and warns him to watch what he does tonight because next week he's going to do a lot worse. Omos walks off to the ring. Omos vs Nick Sanders. We go back to the ring and out comes Omos. Back to commercial. Back from the break and we get a backstage promo from Doudrop on how she will win tonight and then defeat Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title. We go back to the ring and Omos is staring down an enhancement talent named Nick Sanders, who is much smaller than the big man. Omos stares the little guy down and backs off as the bell hits. Omos immediately drops Sanders and stands on his legs so he can't get away. Omos easily picks Sanders up and tosses him across the ring. Omos is fired up now, delivering a big back elbow into the corner and some more trash talking. Omos scoops Sanders to his shoulders, lifts him up and just drops him to the mat. Omos yells out about this being his house. We see Reggie and WWE 24/7 champion Dana Brooke watching backstage. Omos grabs Sanders by his face and delivers the big choke slam bomb. Omos covers Sanders with a boot to the chest for the pin to win. Winner, Omos. After the match, Omos stands tall and keeps his boot on the enhancement talent. We see what happened earlier tonight between Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. We go back to the ring for another must-see edition of The Cutting Edge as WWE Hall of Famer Edge makes his way out. He hits the ring and poses on the ropes as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Edge mentions how tonight's guest is his most curvaceous yet, who he will team with to take on The Miz and Maryse at the WWE Royal Rumble in 2 weeks. He goes on and introduces his wife, WWE Hall of Famer Beth Phoenix. Out she comes to a pop. Edge talks up his wife and sends us to a video package with various superstars commenting on the Glamazon. Beth addresses The Miz and Maryse, and how they will finally shut them up at the Rumble. The music interrupts and out comes The Miz and Maryse to the stage. The Miz talks his wife up and sends us to a narrated video package with highlights from her career. The video package says Maryse and Miz will lay waste to Edge and Beth at the Rumble because together they are unbeatable. We come back and fans are booing Miz and Maryse. Miz rants to the crowd about how everyone should be honored to be in Maryse's presence, and how Beth and Edge should be honored to be in the same ring as her. Edge says Maryse is a former champion and they respect her, and don't want to take away from her career, but his wife can deadlift a Buick and she smashes people. Edge says if he had to face his wife in the ring he'd have the same look as Maryse right now. Beth has a few words for Maryse and wonders why she's suddenly quiet as a mouse now that Beth is back on Raw. Beth says the time for apologies has come and gone, and she's going to wreck Maryse at the Rumble. Miz yells back at them and then tells Maryse to tell Beth about how bad she's going to get beat. Maryse walks off while Miz is running his mouth, but he hasn't seen this yet. Miz turns around and wonders where his wife is. Beth says if Maryse is too afraid to show up for their match at the Rumble, she will take great pleasure in knocking Miz's teeth in. Edge's music starts back up as Miz looks on from the stage. Kevin Patrick is backstage with Austin Theory. Theory says against AJ Styles tonight he has another chance to impress WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon. He talked with Vince earlier and Vince reminded him of how good AJ is, but tonight is different because he will beat AJ and Vince will have no choice but to invest further in Theory. Patrick asks if Mr. McMahon had any other words of encouragement. Theory says Vince told him not to screw this up. Austin Theory vs AJ Styles. We go back to the ring and out comes AJ Styles to a pop. He hits the ring and we go back to commercial. Back from the break and we see how Alpha Academy won the Raw Tag Team titles from RK-Bro earlier tonight. We go back to the ring and out comes Austin Theory as AJ waits in the ring. Theory poses in the corner and takes a selfie as AJ looks on. AJ takes control and goes to work on Theory in the corner. AJ catches Theory with a backbreaker in the middle of the ring. Theory turns it around into corner and stomps on AJ, then hits a big fisherman's buster for a close 2 count. Theory grounds AJ now. AJ fights up and out with back elbows. AJ sends Theory to the floor with a dropkick. Theory comes back in, ducks AJ and sends him to the floor. Theory with a rolling dropkick to knock AJ back to the floor from the apron. Theory poses and talks some trash as we go back to commercial. More back and forth after the break. AJ levels Theory with a sliding forearm. AJ with a suplex into a neck breaker. AJ goes on and looks to nail a phenomenal forearm from the apron, but Grayson Waller attacks from ringside for the disqualification. Winner by DQ, AJ Styles. After the bell, Waller beats AJ down at ringside as fans boo. Theory comes over and thanks Waller, then takes a selfie with AJ and leaves. AJ recovers and fights Waller into the ring, but Waller retreats to boos. AJ stands tall in the ring and has words with Waller. AJ storms off to the back as his music plays. Kevin Patrick is backstage with Grayson Waller now. Waller says this attack wasn't underhanded, he was just giving AJ Styles a preview of what's to come when they wrestle on WWE NXT tomorrow night. Waller says AJ is getting taken out by the Grayson Waller effect. He walks off in a hurry. We get a backstage promo from Liv Morgan on how she's going to win tonight's triple threat and then finally win the Raw Women's title from Becky Lynch. Number 1 contenders triple threat, Liv Morgan vs Bianca Belair vs Doudrop. We go back to the ring for tonight's main event as Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch makes her way out to a pop. Lynch poses on each side of the ring as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and we get a segment that shows Alexa Bliss talking to a therapist in his office. She has a flashback to SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair ripping up Lily months ago. He asks her how that makes her feel and she says thirsty. She fills up a glass of water but keeps pouring until she makes a mess. She grabs the doctor by his tie and asks how it makes him feel, and he says not great. She says that's a shame because she feels dandy. She starts tearing up his office and says if the first step is admitting you have a problem, then she has a problem. He tells her to breathe and she does, but she keeps tearing things up. Bliss screams out to end the segment. We go back to the ring and Lynch has a mic. We see a replay of recent happenings. Lynch takes the mic and welcomes us to the big time. She runs down the competitors in tonight's main event and then heads to the announce table for commentary. Out first comes Bianca Belair. The winner of this match will become the new number 1 contender to challenge Lynch at the WWE Royal Rumble. Back from a break and Liv Morgan and Doudrop are also out. The bell rings and Doudrop drops Morgan with a headbutt and goes at it with Belair after they tried to attack. Belair dumps Doudrop through the ropes to the floor. Doudrop trips Belair and pulls her out. They brawl now until Liv launches herself over the top rope, taking them both down on the floor. Liv rolls Belair back in but Belair runs over her with a shoulder. Belair taunts Liv and they go at it some more. Liv with a Hurricane Rana takedown. Liv taunts Belair but misses in the corner. Belair with a shoulder thrust. Belair mounts Liv in the corner but jumps out of the way as Doudrop runs in with a splash, hitting Liv. More back and forth between the three now. Liv misses a back suplex and Belair hits a belly-to-back suplex on her but Doudrop comes flying in with a big double splash and Becky looks surprised. Doudrop scoops Belair for a Michinoku driver in the middle of the ring. Doudrop runs into a boot from Liv. Doudrop blocks a Hurricane Rana and puts Liv on her shoulders, then slams her face first onto Belair for a 2 count. Doudrop grounds Liv with a submission now. Liv fights up and out but Doudrop splashes her in the corner. Doudrop lines up for a corner cannonball but Liv moves. Liv jumps on Doudrop's back with a double stomp but can't get her down. Doudrop easily knocks Liv over the top to the floor and it sounds like she may have hit part of the steel ring steps on the way down. Doudrop stands tall as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Liv brings both opponents out of the corner but Doudrop kicks out at 2, sending Liv into the turnbuckles. Belair attacks Doudrop with a spear and they all are down now. Belair and Liv are alone in the ring now as they start brawling. Belair ducks and rolls Liv up for 2. Liv goes into a Rings of Saturn submission but can't get it fully locked in. Liv with elbows to the gut trying to get the hold fully applied. Belair screams out but Liv keeps the hold applied and elbows coming to the gut. Belair finally powers up and out with Liv on her back. Belair swings Liv into a side slam but Liv gets her knees up. Doudrop comes in but Liv drops her. Liv with the feet to Belair's back, sending her face first into the turnbuckles. Liv takes Belair to the top and wails away with forearms to the back. Liv climbs up for a super back suplex but Doudrop hits them from behind. Doudrop goes to powerbomb Liv to the mat and she nails it. Doudrop falls on Liv for a 2 count as Belair flies off the top with a big 450 splash to break it up. Becky admits this was mildly impressive. Belair is slow to cover and Doudrop kicks out at 2, then Liv kicks out at 2. Belair shows some frustration now. Belair waits for them both to get up and tells them to bring it. Belair spikes Doudrop into the mat, then slams Liv on top of her with the Glam Slam. Belair with the moonsault onto both opponents. Belair hits the KOD on Liv in the middle of the ring but Becky rushes the ring to break the pin up. Becky tosses Belair to the floor as fans boo her. Becky goes back to the floor and stares Belair down. Belair chases Becky around the ring twice. Becky swings but misses and Belair decks her. They tangle and Becky tosses Belair over the announce table. Doudrop drags Liv to the corner and hits the second rope splash for the pin to win and earn the title shot. Winner and new number 1 contender, Doudrop. After the match, Doudrop stands tall as her music hits. Doudrop vs Lynch is confirmed for the Royal Rumble. Becky comes in and offers her hand for a shake and Doudrop extends her hand but Becky slaps her instead. Becky tries for a manhandle slam but Doudrop blocks it. Becky quickly retreats to the floor and looks surprised as Doudrop stares her down from the ring. Becky rants about helping Doudrop win as Raw goes off the air.